In 1736, Benjamin Franklin was working as a printer in Pennsylvania when he wins a big contract. The Pennsylvania colonial government needed somebody to print the official records from the diplomatic councils between the colonial government and the Six Nations delegates. Franklin gets the contract, and he holds on to that contract for the next 26 years. By 1762, Franklin's printing press has produced 13 separate treaty minutes books. Some of these minute books run over 300 pages, and this is the single largest body of political material about the Haudenosaunee that is printed in any European language. But Benjamin Franklin didn't just set the type. He sat in on the meetings. Conrad Weiser was Pennsylvania's translator and Franklin's intermediary. He brings Franklin to the treaty meetings and he walks him through the speeches line by line. William Penn was a London Quaker and his family were the proprietors of the Pennsylvania colony. By 1736, the Penn family have a problem. They were running out of saleable land on the colony's eastern edge and they were massively in debt to London creditors. To solve their financial problems, they decided to grab more land and push the colony boundary westward into territory already inhabited by the Lenape people. These treaty councils that Franklin attended were a way for the colonial government to legitimize these land grabs by manipulating the diplomatic architecture of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. These councils were land grabs with speeches, and the 1737 Walking Purchase Agreement is the clearest example of that. Penn's agents produce a document that they claim is a reproduction of a lost agreement from 1686. According to them, the Lenape people had already agreed to give Penn, and let me quote this directly, as far as a man can go in 1 day and a half. It's highly probable that this 1686 document was fake. Penn and his agents said it had been agreed but never executed. Imagine someone showing up at your house with a document that is over 100 years old. You have no way to even verify if the document is real, but it says that they are allowed to take as much of your land as they can walk in a day and a half. But it gets worse. They didn't even walk it. Penn's agents set up an athletic event. They hired 3 trained runners and cleared the path in advance. The runner ended up covering 65 miles in a day and a half, and the Lenape people lost 1,200 square miles of land. The document was fake. The walk was a run. The Lenape people refused to leave, so in July 1742, the Pennsylvania government calls a council at Philadelphia, and they pressure the Haudenosaunee Grand Council to enforce this for them. James Logan was the Pennsylvania secretary and the man who had engineered the Walking Purchase Agreement. Logan was Pennsylvania's intermediary with the Six Nations. From roughly 1710 onward, Logan ran a deliberate, documented, multi-decade project to build the Six Nations into Pennsylvania's preferred counterparty on land deals. His campaign had 6 parts. The first was diplomatic recognition. Logan persuaded Pennsylvania to treat the Six Nations as the sole legitimate owners of all Indian land, even land occupied by tribes that were not part of the Six Nations. The second part of his plan was gifts. Every meeting that the Penn government had with the Six Nations records itemized line-by-line gifting. Guns, gunpowder, lead, blankets, rum, shirts, kettles, fur, vermilion, and hundreds of pounds in sterling. The third part was the interpreter. Logan recruited Conrad Weiser, who had been raised among the Mohawks and was fluent in Onondaga. Weiser would take Logan's positions to the council and then return their positions to the Pennsylvania government. Logan paid him personally from the Pennsylvania government budget. The fourth part of the colonial plan was Shikellamy. Logan arranged for the Six Nations to put one of their people, Shikellamy, inside the contested land to supervise the Lenape people. The Penn government supplied Shikellamy with food, arms, prestige, furs, silver, and they treated him as their working authority on Indigenous matters. It was Shikellamy and Weiser who ran the day-to-day management of the Indigenous nations on behalf of the Pennsylvania government. The fifth part of their strategy was selective memory of old deeds and contracts. Logan spent years working through the Pennsylvania archives trying to find any unexecuted or half-remembered agreements that they could retrieve for cash. The walking purchase is the most famous product of that search. And the sixth part of their strategy was information asymmetry. Logan controlled what the Pennsylvania Assembly knew, what the London Board of Trade knew, what the Six Nations Council knew, and what the Lenape people themselves were told. And the letters between himself and Thomas Penn show them explicitly planning what to conceal from which party. I have previously covered the British Middle East strategy on this channel, and the letters between Sir Henry McMahon and the various Arab leaders is the exact same strategy that you see in the letters between James Logan and Thomas Penn. The core colonial strategy here is information asymmetry, telling different groups different things and being the only one who can see the whole picture. Logan was a Protestant from Armagh in Ireland. His family were Ulster planters. That means he had grown up inside the mechanics of British indirect rule in Ireland. His private library included work on Roman provincial administration and early British colonial policy. This was a technically literate coloniser running the Irish model on Susquehanna, and the British ran every extraction colony the same way. They bought, bribed, elevated, or simply invented local authority to run the colony for them. Logan spent years cultivating the Six Nations to work for the colonial government. This included recognising chiefs who worked with them as lords and giving them enough resources, weapons, money, power to suppress their neighbours on behalf of the colonizer. Canassatego is one such trader. He is referred to in some sources as the forgotten founding father. American textbooks leave him out because keeping him in forces 3 admissions at once. Firstly, it requires Americans to acknowledge that Indigenous nations taught the founding fathers federalism. Secondly, it forces you to address that that teaching happened inside these land theft councils. And thirdly, you have to look at the timelines and acknowledge the fact that Canassatego was already working for the Pennsylvania government before these councils. Under the Great Law that he had sworn to uphold, this was a failure. The Great Law of Peace had been founded to end violence between Indigenous nations. Canassatego made a speech in 1742 that inverts that principle. He let the colonizers put words in his mouth. He said what they needed him to say, what they needed somebody Indigenous to say. He delivered Pennsylvania's eviction notice in the diplomatic language of his own constitution. Not only did he teach the founding fathers about federalism, but he let them run their exploitative brand of federalism through him. And what he teaches these British traders becomes the American Constitution. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy is a government. Their constitution was written in 1142. The original Six Nations were Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. Their constitution is called the Great Law of Peace. It has 117 clauses encoded in wampum and recited from memory. If you are wondering what encoded in wampum means, you can search Ali MacForever Knots. I've already done a video on Indigenous knowledge systems. The United States Constitution was ratified in 1789. The Great Law predates that by at least 6 centuries. In 1988, the US Congress passed a resolution acknowledging that the Confederacy had helped shape American federalism. The Haudenosaunee is the oldest continuously functioning democracy on Earth. It still exists today. And in the next video, I'm going to look at the Great Law of Peace and look at what parts of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy made it into the United States Constitution and what did not, and why not. If you want access to the research materials that are behind this video and the broader series, make sure that you're in the Discord and you have the USA tag. And if you would like to support my work, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com/AliMacForever.